This is my Wen 3¼ inch 6 amp electric hand planer. I bought it a number of years ago to fix some drawer boxes like this that I'd made a little too wide, and I had to shave some off the sides so I could fit the sliders on it. Since then, I found a ton of uses for it. It's been super handy. It was super cheap, like 40 bucks. If you've never used one of these, let me show you how to use it. I'll show you what it's used for. And I think you'll agree that you should go out and buy one of these if you don't have one. All right, let's talk about how this thing works. It has a flat metal shoe on the bottom and a cutter head right here that rotates when you pull the trigger. Adjusting the depth of that cutter head is this knob right here. Every audible click is 1/28 of an inch. Its max cutting depth is 1/8 of an inch. So it has a trigger with the safety. Press the safety, you can pull the trigger. Otherwise, no. It has a dust port on either side. Fitting this in goes either side, and you want your lever pointed towards your bag because it will direct the chips in this direction. This actually works really well. Most little dust bags that come with tools like a chop saw don't work very well. This actually picks up a lot of the chips, so it's worth using. This model has this little shoe on the back. It's real loose. It's just by gravity. It'll kickstand the back so the blade isn't touching the surface that you set it on, if by chance it's still spinning when you set it down. This one has a little wrench. The blades on the bottom have little nuts that hold them on, and this wrench is for adjusting your blades or changing your blades. The blades are also reversible. Like a big planer, you can flip them around. It has 2 wing nuts on either side. These wing nuts come off. There's 2 accessories that come with this. You have a rabbeting depth gauge that fits on this side. And you have an edge guard that fits on this side like this. It's adjustable. I'm going to show you how to use both of these once we set up a little demonstration. So you have this front shoe here, which is independent from the rear shoe and from the blade. When you turn this knob, it doesn't adjust the blade, it adjusts the front shoe. I have it set to 0. 0 right there. It's a little tough to see, but the front shoe, the rear shoe, and the blade are all pretty much lined up together. Everything's flat. So let's give it a little turn. And what's happening is this front shoe is going up. So if we do that again, now that we cranked it up, you'll see there's a gap in the front. So what's happening is the wood goes through, it shaves it off, and then the rear part supports the wood that you just shaved off. So if we crank it all the way up, the difference should be 1/8 of an inch. And you can clearly see that the front shoe is higher. Important things you need to know if you're going to buy and use one of these. You can only ever plane with the grain of wood. See the lines? That's the grain. You can only plane with the grain of wood. You can never plane across the end of a board. This can splinter, it can fly apart because you have all the fibers going this way, and you're shaving off the ends of the fibers, and they can break and go flying and send splinters. It's going to break and ruin the piece. You can go this way, you can go this way. You can even chamfer the edge with this little notch right here. You can go 45 off the edge. You can never ever plane the end like this. This is no-go. Don't do it. This piece of wood is screwed to this piece of wood from the bottom, and the screws probably only go to there or so. You wouldn't want to hit any hardware with this thing, so always be conscious of any screws or nails or anything in any wood you're going to plane, because that would be probably pretty disastrous. At the very least, you would mess up all the blades. At the worst, So what we'll do is we'll make a pass. We start at the end. We're gonna take off a 30-second. You wanna put the front shoe on the board you're gonna plane, and you wanna put a little more pressure on the front when you go through. As you go across, you put even pressure on the whole tool, and then when you come off the end, you don't wanna lift it, but you wanna put a little more pressure on the back of the tool. If you come off and you put pressure on the front, what you'll end up doing is wearing down the end of this. You'll plane more off the end, and you'll get a rounded end, and you don't want that, unless you do want that. So we'll pull the trigger, we'll let it get up to speed, and then we'll do one smooth, even pass all the way across. Last pass, it was 1/8 of an inch, and I stopped halfway just so you could see what it was doing. So you have right there 1/8 of an inch difference. Now normally you wouldn't want to stop mid-cut, but I figured so you could get a look and see what the tool is actually doing for you. There you go. Guard's on, still loose, so we can adjust it. Why don't we just stick it right about in the middle? Our wing nut's here. We'll tighten our wing nut. So now we can rely on our guard to keep us right in the middle of the board. Let's give it a shot. We're gonna do a rabbet on our 2x4 that's half of the 2x4. So that's gonna be 3/4 of an inch. So we'll use the scale that's on here. We'll see how that works out. I don't have high hopes. The instruction manual actually tells you that if you want high accuracy, then you should measure, which makes sense. I mean, after all, this is a $40 tool. So we have our rabbeting guide on here. It just attaches with this thumb screw, and you loosen the thumb screw and you can adjust it. It has a scale on it. I think there's a line right here. Yeah, that's 0. So you can't see, the imperial side is over here and the line's over here. So we could do this in millimeters, I suppose. Let's roll with like 7 millimeters. So, you know, whatever, maybe 1/4 inch, maybe a little less. We'll tighten that down. So we're gonna go this deep. So I'll show you how that works out when we set this thing on our board. So here we have it all set up to do a rabbet. We have our guard on here, tightened down to 3/4, which is about half of this board. And then we have our rabbeting guide on here. And all this rabbeting guide is gonna do is allow us to continue to plane this first half of this board as many times as we want, and then it should stop us once we hit this depth. So it'll contact this wood and it should not allow us to rabbet this anymore. Obviously, this is a hand tool, so we're gonna have to be conscious of when this touches, and we'll have to be watching, but let's run it through and we'll see how it does. So here's what a rabbet looks like with a hand planer. A very, very poorly done rabbet. But, you know, for very poor illustrative purposes. Here's the bottom of the tool, unplugged of course, with the rabbet on, with the guard on there. You can see how stable this one is. So it's really hard to hold it straight. I mean, you really got to concentrate because this doesn't really do anything. This is tight. This really doesn't do anything for keeping it straight. This works fine. I mean, it's stable. It'll stop you when you need to stop, but I'm sure there's some much better tools out there that have a much better guard design that actually stays straight and won't allow you to do what I just did to that poor board over there. But, you know, it's 40 bucks. And I didn't buy it for this. And actually, this is the very first time I've ever used this. So, you know, they're terrible. So let's try one last move with this. You got the chamfer, so you can hit it right on the edge here. So we're gonna run it through, we'll run it right on the edge. I'll run it this way and we'll see what happens. About as crooked as my Rabbet, but that's what it does. Just takes an edge right off of there. I could probably think of considerably better ways to make a Rabbet on the end of this board, or to put an edge on here. You can see I pushed down on the end here and this got wider. So honestly, I would get a little hand planer if I was going to try and nip an edge off this, but you know, for demonstration purposes, you can see how bad I am at using that thing. So it was fun. Busting out the accessories on this was a good time. I can see I'm not very good at it, but I didn't buy it for that, and this is actually the very first time I've used both of those accessories. So this thing, for what I bought it for, works perfect. I bought it to shave about a 1/16 off the sides of drawers so that the slides would fit, because you have to have an exact 1/2 inch on the side of your drawer for a side slide to work. And it worked perfect for that, and it saved my butt because I screwed it up and I didn't want to pull it all back apart and, you know, spend a whole day messing around. So for that, it worked perfect. 40 bucks, it solved my problem. And it's really handy to have around here because I goof up like that all the time and, you know, need to take a little tiny bit off of something so something else will fit. And it's pretty awesome for that. $40 just sitting around the garage for the occasional use is perfect. If you're going to use the accessories you need to make Rabbets with it, I'm sure if you looked at DeWalt up or, you know, any of the major name brand tools, I'm sure they have a design that's going to do better than what I just produced here. So I would think about that. This is the only one I've ever used. It's the only one I've ever owned. Until it breaks, it'll probably be the only one that hits this shop, unless we get some cool ones to try out around here, and then we'll do that. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you liked it, check out some of my other videos. If you like those, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. I'll see you in the next video.